What would you do if the person you trusted most turned out to be a cold-blooded killer? On the evening of July 19, 2023, desperate cries echoed through the walls of Barry Schmallach's condo in Cape Coral, Florida. Those screams would mark the beginning of a tragic tale that would unravel a carefully crafted life and expose a deep-seated darkness hidden behind a seemingly perfect relationship. Before we begin, our hearts go out to the family of Barry Schmallach, whose lives have been forever changed by this unimaginable tragedy. We extend our deepest condolences to his loved ones, friends, and all those who had the privilege of knowing him. As they continue to navigate the pain of this loss, we hope that justice will bring them some measure of peace and closure, though we know no amount of justice can truly heal the wounds left by such a devastating event. This is True Crime Diaries, where we delve deep into the most chilling and complex criminal cases, bringing you the untold stories behind the headlines. Join us as we uncover the facts, the twists, and the shocking truths behind some of the darkest moments in history. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping stories. Let us know your thoughts below. We'd love to hear from you. Barry Schmallach, a man who had spent his career building connections, enjoying success, and forging relationships, would meet his end at the hands of someone he once trusted, someone he thought he could rely on. In the days that followed, his friends, family, and even his closest confidants were left to piece together a haunting mystery. As the authorities began their investigation, it quickly became apparent that this was no ordinary case of a missing person. There were strange messages from Barry's phone, his Jeep missing from the parking lot, and his boyfriend, Christopher Davis, was nowhere to be found. And what made the case even more chilling was the fact that the man closest to Barry, the person who should have been his protector, was now the center of attention in a case that would unfold into a gruesome murder mystery. Cape Coral, a quaint coastal community known for its sprawling canals, over 400 miles of waterways, had always been a place where neighbors knew each other's names. It was in this serene environment that Barry had sought peace and a fresh start. Barry, who had spent years in Chicago as the vice president of a major paper goods company, had moved to Florida in 2022 with hopes of embracing a new chapter. He bought a cozy condo on Beach Parkway, nestled among the palm trees and close to the Gulf of Mexico. Barry had left the corporate grind behind, seeking a more relaxed life near the water, where he could enjoy sunny days and spend more time with his beloved dog. His new life in Cape Coral was peaceful. He was well liked by his neighbors, and together they created a community that felt more like family. There was a camaraderie that Barry cherished, whether it was poolside chats, casual get-togethers, or just lending a hand when needed. Everything seemed perfect, but underneath the surface, not everything was as it appeared. Barry had recently met Christopher Davis, a 35-year-old man with a somewhat mysterious background. The two met at a Cinco de Mayo party in 2023, hosted by a mutual friend, and the connection was instant. Their whirlwind romance moved quickly, and before long, Christopher had moved into Barry's condo. It was the type of romance that seemed ideal. Two people who had found each other in the middle of their lives, ready to build something together. Yet, by late July, their relationship was beginning to show cracks. Christopher's behavior began to raise concerns. Barry's friends had begun to notice the tension between the two. Conversations became heated, and arguments were becoming more frequent. Despite the mounting issues, Barry stayed patient, hoping that the storm would pass. But as the days went on, Barry grew more distant, no longer seeming like the cheerful man his friends had known. On the morning of Thursday, July 20th, 2023, Miguel Blanco, a longtime friend of Barry's, received a voicemail from him. The timestamp read 8:21 p.m. on the night of July 19th, just before Barry's disappearance. The message, laden with frustration, revealed the gravity of the situation. "Hey, it's me. Give me a call. I need your help. I need to get rid of this idiot, 'cause I can't take it anymore."
Give me a call. I need your help. I need to get rid of this idiot, because I can't take it anymore.
At first, Miguel assumed the voicemail was nothing more than a typical relationship argument. But as he listened, something about Barry's voice, desperate, almost panicked, made him pause. This wasn't the Barry he knew. When Miguel called back, there was no answer. The more he thought about it, the more concerned he became. He immediately tried reaching out to Christopher, but the responses he received only made him more suspicious. Christopher had sent him a screenshot of a text message exchange between him and Barry. The message read, "I'm fine. I'm staying with friends for a few days. I need some space. Please stop calling me." As the situation unfolded, Miguel and his husband Tom were growing more concerned. The frustration and desperation in Barry's voicemail kept playing in their minds. The following day, they made their way to Barry's condo. When they arrived at the building, they noticed something unusual. Barry's Jeep was gone, but 2 packages addressed to his business were left outside his door. Barry would never leave important packages unattended, especially not outside. The tension in the air was palpable as Miguel and Tom knocked on Barry's door, but there was no response. The sinking feeling in their stomachs deepened. They used the spare key Barry had given them to access the condo, and what they discovered inside was both puzzling and disturbing. Barry was known for being an exceptionally neat person. Everything had its place, and his home was always in perfect order. But when Miguel and Tom stepped inside the condo, they found mud tracked across the floor, lights left on, and items strewn about. Barry, who had spent years meticulously maintaining his home, would never leave it in such disarray. It didn't make sense. Something was off. They left the business packages on the counter and left the condo, but not before calling Cape Coral police. The unsettling feeling that had settled in their stomachs was impossible to ignore. They feared the worst, but they still didn't have enough evidence to prove anything yet. The following morning, Christopher Davis made the first move, reaching out to law enforcement. His call was to report Barry as missing, though his emotions were mixed. He was visibly emotional, but strangely calm at the same time.
I haven't heard from him in a few days. He did tell me that he wanted some space and he needed a few days, but his friends haven't heard from him, and I'm concerned. I wasn't trying to be nosy, but he left his Apple Watch here, and message was coming in. Apparently had an Italian dinner with someone last night.
So you said that he had messages coming in last night, so he was on his phone?
I don't know. I don't see what he typed. It's an Apple Watch. A message popped in from a 23 number, and it said, "How did you feel about that Italian dinner last night? How about Chinese tomorrow?"
Okay.
But his other friends have not heard from him. His friend Miguel has not heard from him, and I have not heard from him. He did message me and tell me that he wanted to stay for a few days.
Right.
And someone came in our house and put packages on the counter, so I think he was there that night because there's packages on the counter, but I don't.
Okay, so I'll have an officer come out and meet with you. It doesn't sound like he's missing if he's still coming and dropping stuff off and having dinners. But what is his name?
Barry Schmallach.
Can you spell that for me, please?
He showed the officers several text messages between him and Barry, which he argued were proof that Barry's behavior wasn't out of the ordinary. According to Christopher, Barry had a habit of disappearing and coming back, so there was no real reason to panic. But Christopher's behavior was already raising suspicions. He had mentioned, without prompting, that Barry had left his Apple Watch at home. The messages from the watch suggested that Barry had been out to dinner with someone, but that didn't explain why he had suddenly gone silent, or why he hadn't contacted anyone.
Messaging him, where are you, where are you, where are you, and then this came up.
Let's say.
And this was, I'm sorry, and this was yesterday.
How did you feel about the until you there yesterday at loving my trailers and reject these plates that oaks at night?
And he does have his cell phone with him?
Yes. But yeah, so I was on my way to Walmart today, and his friend called and was like, hey, what's up? And I was like, I'm on my way to Walmart. And he was like, where's Barry? And I was like, I thought Barry was with you. Because that's what he meant, because that's what I thought he said when he said he was going to go stay with friends.
Right. You said he does go out of town?
He does go out of town, yeah.
Alright, is his vehicle here? Did he take his vehicle?
No, he didn't take his vehicle, but he never takes his vehicle.
Does he like an Uber or something like that? Does he go to the airport?
Yes, every time he goes to the airport, every single time, he never takes the car out of town.
His lack of concern seemed almost rehearsed. When asked for his identification, Christopher provided his details, including his date of birth, but later, it was revealed that he had lied. Christopher's real birth date was June 8, 1988, not the June 9, 1989 he had provided.
The freaking arguments that we got into was because I tried to find my eye patch on his phone because I thought it was Chuck.
And it could be.
Have to hear me an asshole.
It could be. I mean, like I said, I don't know what you all do and what type of relationship you got or anything like that, but it seems like he needed some space. He wanted to head out. He maybe didn't want to talk to anybody around here for a while. And obviously, from the looks of it, he should be back. He left all his stuff. Okay. Yep. But like I said, I can document it that I did talk to you. Do you have a driver's license?
I do have to find it.
You go by Chris or Christopher? Christopher, what's your middle initial?
G.
And date of birth?
6/9/89.
And Alaska, you said?
Yeah.
You out of Florida?
No, Alaska.
It is Alaska?
Yes.
Last name is Davis?
Yes.
Okay. It's not coming back. Middle initial G? Did you change the name or anything like that?
No.
I mean, it is a popular name. I mean, Davis is popular, but... Well, anyways, like I said, Christopher, give it a little bit of time. Like I said, he needed space. I'm sorry.
Tuesday or Wednesday?
Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, you can do that, because it's going to show a little...
This discrepancy seemed trivial at first, but when investigators checked further, they discovered something even more alarming. Christopher Davis was wanted in Georgia for fraud, and in South Carolina for larceny. If Christopher had been upfront with the police, his warrants would have immediately been flagged, and his history could have raised even more red flags. As law enforcement continued to investigate, they discovered more inconsistencies in Christopher's story. After speaking with Miguel and Tom, who had insisted that a missing person report be filed, the police returned to Barry's condo. This time, their search revealed something shocking, evidence that pointed to murder. The items Christopher had bought the previous day, plastic tarp and duct tape, were found to be linked to Barry's disappearance. Surveillance cameras had caught Christopher buying these items at Walmart using Barry's credit card. The question now was, why would Christopher need a tarp and duct tape? And more importantly, why had he used Barry's credit cards? It was becoming increasingly difficult for Christopher to explain his actions. The night of July 20th, the day after Barry's disappearance, Christopher took Barry's Jeep and drove 2 hours east to Montura, a sparsely populated area in Henry County. It was there, amidst the thick brush, that he likely disposed of evidence that could connect him to the crime. Christopher's trip was meticulously tracked by license plate readers, which recorded him making several stops on his way to Montura. At Walmart, he bought air fresheners, one for the rearview mirror and one for the trunk, along with a shovel and pickaxe at an Ace Hardware store. These were not the types of items someone buys casually, especially after a significant argument with their partner. But they were just the beginning. Christopher checked into an Airbnb using his brother Tyler's account. He told the host he would be going out for a run, but when the host later found the place in disarray, they were perplexed. Furniture had been moved around, and there was mud all over the floors. It was clear that something had happened while Christopher was staying there, something that he didn't want anyone to know about. For a period of about 3 hours, Christopher's phone was powered off. When it finally came back online, he was no longer at the Airbnb, but back in the Jeep, dirty and with a vehicle that had clearly been used for something other than a casual trip. It was at this point that the police knew they were dealing with something far more sinister than a missing person case. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place. The story just keeps getting darker. What do you think Christopher's true motive was? Did he act out of anger, or was it something more premeditated? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into true crime, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. We have many more jaw-dropping stories coming your way. On July 21st, Christopher's movements became even more bizarre. He had changed clothes, purchased toiletries, and even bought a hot dog. But it was his final stop at the same Ace Hardware store that would prove to be the most telling. Christopher was seen dumping items, including the pickaxe and shovel, into a recycling bin behind the store. When an employee questioned him about what he was doing, Christopher seemed agitated but ultimately removed the items and left. At this point, the authorities were growing more certain that Christopher Davis had been responsible for the murder of Barry Schmallach. But they still didn't know the full extent of the crime, or where Barry's body might be. On August 1st, 2023, after weeks of investigation and mounting evidence, Christopher Davis was arrested on an outstanding warrant for a probation violation related to his previous criminal activities in South Carolina. While this was not directly related to Barry's case, it provided law enforcement with the opportunity to take Christopher into custody and start questioning him under more controlled circumstances. For 2 days, Christopher was held in Cape Coral police custody. During this time, police worked diligently to build their case against him. They had already gathered substantial evidence: the credit card fraud, the suspicious purchases, and his movements across Montura. But what they still lacked was the key piece: Barry's body. Without this, the case remained primarily circumstantial. Christopher, for his part, remained remarkably calm, maintaining his innocence. He denied any involvement in Barry's disappearance, though his actions and the evidence suggested otherwise. Despite the mounting evidence against Christopher, the police were still at a loss as to where Barry's body might be. They believed Christopher had hidden it somewhere in the rural Montura area, but the terrain was rough and vast, making the search incredibly difficult. Christopher's movements had been tracked meticulously, and investigators believed they had a rough idea of where he may have disposed of Barry's remains. Search teams scoured the area, combing through dense brush, wooded areas, and abandoned lots. Search dogs were brought in to track any signs of human remains, but despite their best efforts, Barry was still missing. As the days passed, Barry's family and friends grew more desperate. They knew the truth that Christopher had something to do with Barry's death, but the pain of not knowing where Barry was weighed heavily on them. His friends Miguel and Tom continued their own search efforts, posting flyers, and even offering a $16,000 reward for any information that could lead to the recovery of Barry's body. Yet, the search was looking more like a needle in a haystack.
Heard from or seen since the evening of July 19th, 2023, near the 1800 block of Beach Parkway East here in Cape Coral, near his home. At this time, we do have a person of interest. However, I'm unable to name that person today. Our detectives continue to actively pursue all leads and process pertinent evidence in our attempt to locate Mr. Schmallach.
All the cops are here, and I was like, hey man, what's up? He's like, hey, and I'm like, you know what's going on? And he said, yeah, they're searching my condo. And I was like, ooh, that's no good. And he said, yeah, my boyfriend's missing.
It's been 7 days. You know, no contact with anybody for 7 days. That's not normal for anybody that's even upset. That's not normal not to contact anybody for 7 days.
This has culminated with the issuance of an arrest warrant for Christopher Davis on 1 count of second-degree murder, 1 count of tampering with evidence, and 9 counts of fraudulent use of personal identification of a deceased individual.
Hearing it and having it confirmed brought a whole new wave of emotions.
I love you so much. I'm so heartbroken that this happened to you. And I'm so sorry. And I miss you. I would just hug him so hard.
Christopher's time in Cape Coral Jail was filled with strange, unsettling reports. He began to complain about being targeted by other inmates, saying that he was in danger and requesting to be transferred to a safer facility. His requests were denied, but his behavior painted a clear picture. He was trying to deflect attention from himself and his crime, rather than facing the truth of what he had done. While his legal team began preparing for the trial, Christopher continued to speak to his family, though his tone was often disjointed and defensive. It seemed that, even in custody, he couldn't keep the lies straight. The more time passed, the more investigators felt they had him cornered. In January 2024, Christopher Davis was formally charged with first-degree murder in connection with Barry Schmallach's death. The Cape Coral Police Department made the announcement, and an arrest warrant was issued for Christopher's return to Lee County, Florida. The announcement of the charges was bittersweet for Barry's friends and family. While it was a relief to know that Christopher was being held accountable, the pain of not knowing where Barry's body was remained unbearable. The trial in June 2025 would be a crucial moment for everyone involved. The prosecution was confident in their case, having gathered extensive evidence from surveillance footage, witness testimonies, and Christopher's own actions. They painted a picture of a premeditated crime, one that had been carefully planned and executed by a man who was not only manipulative but also violent.
No, no.
Those are the last noises that the neighbor heard from Barry Schmallach's apartment before Barry was never seen or heard from again.
However, the defense team came prepared with their own arguments. They tried to downplay the significance of the argument between Barry and Christopher on the night of July 19, 2023, claiming that it wasn't anything serious. They suggested that the emotional tension between the couple was simply a result of Barry's declining health and Christopher's role as his caregiver. The defense argued that their relationship wasn't perfect, but there was no real motive for Christopher to harm Barry. The defense also tried to point to alternative theories. Perhaps Barry had met someone new, and things had gone wrong. Maybe he had been hit by a car on his walk home, or perhaps he had fallen into a canal.
He leaves and goes wandering down Beach Parkway, and if you heard, Beach Parkway goes kind of through the river in Cape Coral, and then there's canals all around it. And say someone's coming down Beach Parkway and mows them down because they're drunk too, DUI manslaughter. Oh my God, my life's ruined. What do I do? Crap. They're in the car and go. Meanwhile, his wallet fell out and is now in a storm drain. So let's get rid of that. Let's blame it all on Chris. Let's infer from the evidence, everything, it's all on him, the mastermind here.
Though these theories didn't align with the evidence, the fact that Barry's wallet and credit cards were found in Christopher's possession made it nearly impossible for the defense to argue that Barry had disappeared voluntarily. Kimberly, the neighbor who had heard the violent sounds coming from Barry's condo on the night of July 19th, took the stand. She described hearing Barry's final cries, which sent chills down her spine. Her testimony was crucial, as it painted a vivid image of the violent confrontation that occurred between Barry and Christopher.
And between that time, I heard something directly right above my unit where I was sitting, because we had, like I said, had the same floor plans. I heard something being thrown up against the wall and heard, no, no, no.
And did you hear anything after that?
Yeah, a couple minutes later, I heard this noise, and it gave me chills, like the hair on my arms, and it was like someone losing their last breaths. And then maybe 10 minutes later, I heard chirp, chirp, which was a car.
Okay.
Someone opening up their car. And I, like I said, I know it had to be around 9 o'clock, and I thought, well, that's weird. There's only 3 of us on my side of the building, and they were one upstairs, and like I said, I know they go to bed early, and Mary was downstairs. She don't go nowhere, and it was me. So I thought, well, it's time for me to go to bed. So I went to the front to lock the door, and as I walked by my window, I thought, let me see who. And I looked out, and Barry's Jeep was missing.
Other witnesses, including Brian Job, a resident of the building, also took the stand, corroborating the timeline of events and adding more weight to the prosecution's case.
The front door, opened it up just a little bit, maybe 10 inches, and I heard the plastic, and then within just a few seconds, I saw a person dragging something back into the, where I could see like the back half of them. They were bent over, dragging something, and then I could spot them, their back end. Carrying a black tote with a yellow top, like you see at Sam's or Home Depot.
And did you see where that individual would go?
He went right into the unit 303.
Okay. And unit 303, once again, is that Mr. Schmallach's residence?
Yes.
And were you able to discern whether or not that individual was one and the same individual that was going ahead and pulling that heavy tarp?
It was.
And did that individual, when you saw him once again with the black bin and the yellow top, were you able to discern by and through what you observed who that was?
Yes.
Who was that?
Christopher Davis.
The dog handler who had conducted the search in the Jeep also testified about the scent of human remains in the vehicle, further linking Christopher to the crime. In their closing argument, the prosecution laid out the case for premeditated murder. They emphasized the shocking timeline of events, the argument at the bar, the disturbing sounds heard by neighbors, Christopher's purchases of tarp and duct tape, and his bizarre behavior in the days following Barry's disappearance. They highlighted how Christopher had used Barry's credit cards and made strange purchases, all while Barry was still missing. The defense, on the other hand, tried to create doubt, insisting that the evidence was circumstantial. They argued that the argument between Barry and Christopher was not out of the ordinary and that there was a reasonable explanation for everything. However, the jury was not swayed. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all charges. Christopher Davis was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
It finds as follows as to count 1 of the charge. Count 1, second-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of second-degree murder. Count 2, tampering with physical evidence.
In addition to the murder charge, Christopher was sentenced to 5 years for tampering with evidence and 5 consecutive years for each of the 8 counts of credit card and identity fraud. Barry's family, though relieved that justice had been served, were still left with heartbreak. Despite Christopher's conviction, they would never know where Barry's body was.
We want to find Barry, and we are well aware that a lot of these cases go unsolved and there's no resolution, and families are always just left wondering what happened to my loved one. And we are extremely appreciative for all of the work that has been put.
Christopher Davis's conviction brought some measure of justice, but it couldn't fill the void left by Barry's tragic death. The story of Barry Schmallach serves as a chilling reminder of how quickly things can turn when trust is broken. For his family and friends, the pain of his loss will never fade, but they will continue to fight for justice and the hope that one day, Barry's remains will be brought home. What do you think? Did justice truly prevail, or is there more to the story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more jaw-dropping true crime stories. Until next time, stay aware, stay safe, and always look a little deeper. This is True Crime Diaries, where every story has a pulse.